On today's podcast, we have Josh Allen. He's a CEO and founder of Charter Flight Support. Josh, welcome on. We appreciate you being here with us.
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time. Will you explain to us what Charter Flight Support does, how you came up with the idea, and how it's going?
Yeah. First off, it was built by a desire to fix my own problems that I had as a broker and as an operator. And then the second reason was for transparency in a market that is not always transparent. So the first one being that we had our own problems. And I think it's industry wide that the consumer doesn't always know how brutal it is to find a replacement. When we have a recovery and the client pays 30 grand and the next best option's 45 grand and you're taking that $15,000 loss, sometimes that customer's pissed off and you have to go to them and tell them you're going to pay the 15 grand and most likely lose that client. Or what I did, which was worse, I would pay the 15 grand and still piss the guy off and he would leave. So we were trying to find a way to not have that happen. So we built CFS to solve, first of all, our problems. And then as we opened up the last 3 years, we've had guys that we trust, guys like you that we like to come in and poke holes in it to see how, if we had any holes in the ship, and then also how we can help you guys manage your business. The other thing too with that is AOGs take so much of your time. So you're not able to go out and sell more trips. You're not able to stay focused on bringing in new revenue. So our team is there to basically be your back office to help find recoveries when those happen. The second reason we started it was the transparency that I mentioned. So many times brokers would think that the operator was just pulling the trip for a better trip, even though they had a big pain point. So this actually helped operators in a way because they gave a Techlog to prove their mechanical. And so the broker would actually come back to the next time they need a trip instead of thinking, oh my gosh, that operator is just going to pull another trip on.
Yeah.
So that all helped the operator, but it also helped the broker so that they could actually make sure that the operator wasn't screwing. So really the CFS was purely built because it was a needed item for my business and I knew it was needed for others if we could make it work.
How many trips do you think you guys are reviewing on any given day or any given week?
Our goal this year is to do over $100 million in trips. So we're well on our way for that in the first quarter. Probably will surpass that by a large margin, especially as we start opening it up for new clients. In terms of how many trips, we probably do on average 10 to 15 legs a day, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but yeah, somewhere in that range. Some days are busy. Today is Tuesday, not a ton of flying, but then you get the weekend and you might have 20, 30 legs.
Yeah. Josh, how much of that recovery and kind of process on the back end to actually make sure that you guys can support somebody or something that's happening? How many hands do you actually have trying to go make phone calls and do everything?
Yeah, our team's growing with the amount of traffic that we're gaining. There's some days our guys are literally sitting on their hands, not doing anything, because there might be a miracle day where there's no AOGs, but our team's ready to deploy when that happens. So we're actively, in fact, we just had a meeting where we're bringing on 5 other people to come help with our sourcing team. But yeah, it's 24/7, and in systems, we wish Avinode and all the systems would work and make it easy, but still old school calling operators and getting their attention. The one thing that we do have that other brokers don't have is that people know that our trips are real and we're also not bottom feeders. So when we call an operator, we're committed to our customer. If they bought it for 50 grand, the next best option is 100 grand. We're going to take that $50,000 haircut. So the operator may know that to our disadvantage, give us poor pricing, but more importantly for us, it's just availability. So they know when we're calling, we're for real.
You think the industry can get to a point where we're automating, hey, I've got a need at this airport going to this over these dates. I can then tap directly into an airplane operator's schedule and they confirm, yes, this airplane's available. And you think we can get to a point where we click to book?
I don't know why we can't. I think That insight's already there. If it's just a matter of the operator letting you plug and play, as with all the other ones, they've got to find a way, and maybe they do, where they can limit what and who that what the planes are always doing, maybe for just confidential stuff. But there's no reason we can't skip a process. Might not be auto booking. We get a quote, we like the number, and now can you make it happen? I don't understand why we're not there yet.
Yeah. I want to skip the quote process. I think the actual someone that's typed in KVNY probably 50,000 times in my life, that process of someone sitting back, clicking yes, this quote works. I feel like we're close, but for some reason we can't get over that hump of airplanes available, we have crew, the pricing is the same
Yeah.
almost every time. Maybe there's some demand levers that commercial providers automatically generate demand based on airplane availability, time of year, and then it spits out an auto price of an airplane that is available, has a crew that you can book.
Yep. Yeah, we've actually started going, as opposed to asking for a quote, we just go and say, can you hit this number?
Mhm.
We're ready to book at this number.
Yeah.
Obviously, that doesn't mean if we can't hit that number, we still don't want to see a quote.
Yeah.
But if that client's booked a $50,000 trip that went AOG, and we would love a 25% margin loss for us, that
Mhm.
doesn't happen very often. And we'll probably get to that, but our losses are significant when they happen. But 25% margin loss would be a home run for us. But if we had a $50,000 trip and we go to operator A and say, we'll book this today at 75,000, that kind of skips the process and makes them aware that these guys aren't messing around.
Maybe let's walk through a process of what that looks like. Because for me, we use the service, but I tell people it's our good luck charm because every time we've used the service, we haven't had a mechanical issue.
Yep.
Now, maybe it's because we're smarter than everybody else, and we only use the best airplanes that never go mechanical. But what's the process look like? I call Josh. Hey, Josh, I want to start using your service. Here's a flight that my client's booked. What's that? What we break down the process for us?
Yeah, we originally just had a kind of like a quote process that you would get from an operator. You told us, and most of the time you would just send us your operator contract. We don't care about what you're marking it up. We don't care any about that because we're just protecting you. So we normally scrape that data on whatever operator that you went with, and then we provide you a quote, and then you sign off, and then you pay for that individual trip. We're also have now tried to make the process a little more smoother because we're hitting $200 fees. There's sometimes $1,500 fees. It's $300 here. We don't want to ding the card every $300 or make you wire for $1,500, stuff like that. We've created this new blanket contract program where you sign up, and then at the end of the month, we give you your total, and we break it down by trip. So you still buy it on the trip basis. You're not buying it on your whole book of business, but you're picking and choosing, but making the booking process a little bit more streamlined. That has helped a lot. Some of our big customers they'll do 20, 30, 40 trips a month, and a counting nightmare if we just did it individually. That process happens. If you go AOG, which you guys are a good luck charm right now, you won't always be that way, but when it happens, we go out and find your recovery. We support you. Sometimes you guys can work. You're more than welcome to work in the recovery options, but we want to be that back office when you're out golfing or you're out entertaining a client, that you don't have to leave the course, leave the dinner table to now go take care of the other client while losing the opportunity to win a deal with the other, or a family emergency, whatever it might be. But we do the whole sourcing. You really don't care because we're going equal or better. So if you book a Citation XLS, we're not going to give you a Citation Ultra. And we're not just going to sign off either. We're going to deliberate together, give you the options, give you the choices to sign off. And then when you sign off, you now move your client data directly to the operator without us being involved, so that we do not get into the weeds of, oh, you might have who my client is, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. You are my client. So our sourcing team is literally there to be your back office and go out and do all that dirty work. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, I guess a couple steps that honestly I'm not clear about because we haven't experienced it. I paid $50,000 for the Citation XLS trip. It goes mechanical. The next best solution is another Citation XLS, and it's $60,000. How does the money get handled from the second operator now?
Yeah, so you go direct with the operator. We get it all put together. We say, okay, Daniel, this is your trip. If you want to go with it, sign off. Then we next business day wire you the delta of the two. So in that scenario, it was 50 to 60. So we wire you the $10,000, but you're still going direct with the operator and doing direct with client confidential stuff.
Great. That makes sense.
The other thing too is it's really this is the greatest part about our business is everybody, we say equal or better. Nobody has the same equal or better standards. So some might say platinum is better than age. Some might say I have a Citation XLS, a Lear 60 is better, a Citation XLS is better than a Lear 60. Those are all great things that we talk through, and I get it. Some clients have a firm stance of we won't fly on a particular make and model because we had a scare. The more details that you give us, the better. We had a mechanical the other day. It was a light jet. It was a Wi-Fi airplane and that was the requirement by the broker's client to have Wi-Fi. We understand that. So we will get you, and that light jets don't always have Wi-Fi. So that one was an auto upgrade always to a mid.
Yeah.
And we can get down to those numbers, but it's very seamless in that there is a gray area because we're mirroring what you booked. If you're booking an operator that is Argus Gold, it's a 2000 G4, you can't come back and say, I want to go with the platinum operator over the gold one because then we're just going to get hosed and they're only going to be putting support on the bad operators. So we really mirror exactly what you book.
I guess it's also situational, and we've talked about this as well, where it's like, all right, I've got a Phenom 300 with Wi-Fi. It's going to take 5 hours, or you can go on the CJ3 with no Wi-Fi in 2 hours. Which one does your client want to go with?
Yep, and that's a choice for you. So let's give another scenario. It's $25,000 trip. The AOG is the bad AOG. It happens the morning of departure. And the option that you had was a CJ3. And we have a Phenom 300 that can leave 3 hours later, or we have a CJ4 that can leave 4 hours later. And the Phenom 300 is priced more than the CJ4. We will take the Phenom 300 unless you just call an audible and say, no, we would rather go with the CJ4 for some reason. That which would be good for us, but that's not the requirement. If we have an option that gets you out of there earlier and it's more money, we're going to do that. Unless your client it's not about time.
Josh,
So really it's like you're working in tandem as almost an extension of that company's team.
Correct. We feel when an AOG, even when a trip books, like it's cool. Like I've competed with all these guys in a way as for the last 20 years. I've known them. I've known that we're bid against them on trips. Now I feel like we're part of a team together. And our job is to make that broker, that operator look like the hero that they are in front of their client.
Josh, have you guys seen this create a defense mechanism for brokers or operators within the open market to say, no, by the way, it's CFS, so we actually do have something and you guys need to provide this if you are pulling the airplane? How has that kind of shown itself?
Yeah, when we first started, our big hurdle was, would operators give Techlogs? That was the question mark. Will they show that they actually had a claim or a mechanical? Right now, we're at like 99% operators providing mechanicals. And the 1% that we had was early stage. So I think that operator that did not give the Techlog at that time is providing Techlogs now. So we're getting through the hurdle as we grow and scale together. The Techlog not being such a foreign request for people. We're not having, let's see here, trying to give you a story without naming names. That's the hardest part.
And for people who don't know, what's a Techlog and what does it tell you?
Yeah, the Techlog is strictly a write-up. that the maintenance event happened or whatever maintenance event happened. This does not cover scheduled maintenance. So if the operator does do something and it butts up with the scheduled maintenance, that's not a claimable event. But any AOG that happens within 10 days. The funny thing is most people think the AOGs are happening as soon as the client's walking on board. That's not the case. We're seeing 75%-ish of our mechanicals are happening outside 24 hours. So those are great because we're able to provide enough time to get an airplane on time. So in terms of keeping operators straight, like Austin was asking, it has helped in some ways when we are not even, our support's not even deployed. There was an operator where, let's just call it a floating fleet operator, and they were giving the tail number 24 hours before departure. They gave the tail number 24 hours, and then about the next hour, they said, hey, we had an AOG on that tail. We don't have anything to recover your trip tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that broker immediately called him back and said, hey, we have CFS on this trip. Can you provide? And as he was speaking, the lady interrupted him and goes, you have that AOG product. I got to come clean. That thing's been mechanical for 7 days now. So
we were hoping it was going to be fixed in time. They were throwing parts at it and they just haven't found the right part for it.
Yep. And now you're butt up to a date the night before a morning departure. Now that broker's pretty much screwed. They did do right. I probably pulled it on somebody else that didn't have our coverage, but they made it right and did get the client out of there on time. But if it weren't for mentioning the product, it probably wouldn't happen. And that's not not patting ourselves on the back. That was just a time that it actually helped where we weren't even really deployed yet. It was just a mention of transparency.
It's just a point of accountability for everybody involved to hold the feet to the fire and say, no, either provide proof or give a little bit more, because it creates that conversation. We've even had a couple of those, and I have to commend your team. We had something that I think we were 4 days out. Operator let us know, and your team was like, yeah, these are the mechanicals we love. I've never seen somebody so fired up to jump in and make a couple of phone calls to find a recovery.
Oh, that was actually over a holiday time, but I think that operator actually made it work.
They made it work, and I think that was, coverage on both sides. We didn't have sweat coming off of our foreheads over the holiday, and it was simple and it was very easy, and it was great to have somebody who was excited to dive into the deep end.
Yeah, those are good. We love 24 hours notice. Those are just great because not only do we have an on-time percentage, we normally have a lower loss. We're seeing some of our losses be very high. The mechanicals are straightening out a little in terms of there's not as many, I don't think, right now. And our data,
less, right?
They're flying less, but when there's a mechanical, it's still a very costly thing, extremely costly. So we are seeing that level out, but on those, we love the 24 hours, especially, you had 4 days and that was easy because we can also pair, it gives us the opportunity to pair with other mechanicals we're having. We're always dealing with some sort of issue.
Josh, are you guys privately funded or is somebody underwriting all of this? How does that work to be able to support this structure? Because you're not playing, this isn't a game of pennies.
No, we're mostly privately funded. We do have an insurer behind that supports our product, not fully. They have a small position, but next month we have, or this month actually, we have an around the world trip. It's $high trip in the millions of dollars a trip. So we double that support. Those are 84 legs. What's the probability of not 84 of those work? That will be our biggest trip that we've done to date. But we're a lot of money transferring daily, but we are well funded and well positioned for that. And knowing that even large brokers don't have the capital sometimes they have it, but they just don't want to deploy it. So we're seeing mom and pop operators, truck brokers, all the way to some of your bigger brands out there that are using it just because of that the capital deployment. It is expensive.
Yeah, the cash flow is such an important part of any business, but definitely aviation business too.
Yeah.
Would love to get into some stats. So we want to know of so far this year, what's the worst performing airplane that has the highest percentage of mechanical issues?
Right now, the leader in the clubhouse is a Citation Sovereign at close to 19%.
19%?
19 change. Yeah.
Yikes. So it's 1 in 5. So one in
Yeah.
5 means you're on a sovereign, you might be not on a sovereign.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a notoriously bad airplane from even my background without, when we were managing sovereigns, we never kept the data that we're keeping today, which is alarming that we haven't had that data. But doing this whole business, the coolest thing that I've learned is I've just learned so much more in the 3 years of doing it because I'm knowing stats that we just haven't tracked before. And a Citation Sovereign is a great airplane, but it's got a high AOG percentage. The second one isn't, this one's not as probably shocking, an 850 XP, 800 Hawker 850 XP at 18%, so pretty close to a sovereign. Then it trickles down to G200s. Citation products in general have had a higher percentage than I thought they would.
You think it's because, and this is my hunch, you've got big fleet providers that bought and flew Citation products. The Sovereigns, Citation 10s, they were all big NetJet or FlexJet airplanes. They flew a very high number of hours on those airplanes. I wanted to say fly the fuck out of those airplanes, but I'm trying to, they flew a high number of hours on those airplanes. And then I had probably operated them pretty well, but then they passed them down to a different mode of operating those airplanes. And maybe those transition or those hours just start to catch up on these airplanes.
Yeah, my hypothesis is it's definitely that, but I think it's just a parts issue in general for all product lines, new to old. Everybody's having issues with parts. Maybe they're just having a longer time on ground because of parts availability. It might not be that they're even operating them any more poorly than the operator before them or whatever it might be. It could be just that it's a parts problem. So that's my hypothesis. Is there a big delta in one operator over another operator? In some cases, yes. So some operators that we see are having a better success rate at keeping airplanes airborne. Others are not. There's been some wild stats where I, without naming names again, I have gone into thinking one operator is going to have a higher mechanical percentage than another one. And then finding out it's not bad. It's another one that I thought was good. It's pretty bad. All things that just stats are telling us instead of my head thinking it. And it's not just my book. We got a lot of other people booking trips all over the country that are proving that their data, it shows that some aren't as bad as we thought.
Okay, so what are some of the best performing airplanes?
So this one would shock you a little bit, and it shocked me a lot, and it coincides with what I just said. A Citation 10.
No way.
Is
that just statistically you've operated so many flights that?
Yep. Yeah, a Citation 10 is operating smoother than predicted. Not saying it's the best airplane out there, but some of my stat with this, and another one is a Falcon 50. Like I thought a Falcon 50 would be AOG. It's not as bad as, definitely not as bad as a Sovereign. Then we're close. And then there's the new airplane, the G650s, the Praetors, all those are in that same kind of ballpark. But not a huge difference between the 10s and some of these newer.
Maybe there's so many of those 10s operating that maybe your parts hunch, who knows? Maybe you got more Citation 10 parts than you've got other stuff because you've got a ton of them operating. And
yep. I mean, that definitely goes part with my hypothesis is that, and again, I'm not in the OEM stuff. I'm not in the parts business. I am in AOG supporting charter flights business. But a lot of my friends that have bought brand new airplanes, Embraer, for example, a guy bought a Praetor and it was like 6 months to get a windshield and it was brand new airplane. I'm not saying it's not 6 months for an old airplane right now either, but all parts are just being used. So it's everybody's flying. So even in our dip, it's a little bit eased up on parts, but you're brand new to old airplane. I don't know. Old is always still have more problems than new with parts and breaking down, but it's not as big of a delta gap as I thought.
Josh, do you see that most of the people who have a little bit of age disparity that we work with, whether it's clients or partners or anybody else, it's in the back of everybody's head, they want to see that 2000 or 2005 and newer versus something that has the 19 in front of it? Do you see that being a good way to approach how age is considered? Or do you think at this point it's, no, you really want to be 2010 and newer, or it's all about the same? Is there any kind of information that the data's pointed you there?
My data hasn't done that yet. Maybe at this time next year when we have hopefully 200 million, 300 million, whatever it might be in terms of trips supported, we'll have a bigger range gap of data. But I would say that nothing is steering. Like I thought we were set up in a way where only people would book with old airplanes and then we get housed. That's not really what's going on. A lot of people are booking the older stuff because they think they got more chance of mechanical. And then they'll call me the 2 days later and go, you can't believe this. The plane is brand new and it went AOG and we didn't buy your support. But I like our rating system is the same for a 2023 as opposed to a 2007. And the same for 1988. If it's a old Falcon 20, we're going to support it. If it goes AOG, it's actually easier for our claim in a way because everything's equal or better, as opposed to a G650 where there's not a ton of opportunities to go equal or better.
Yeah.
And from a pricing standpoint, it's the same pricing structure. It's all just based on airplane size, right?
Correct. We go by category size or size. So turboprop, VLJ, light, super light, mid, super mid, heavy, and then ultra long range. We'll do pistons, but that's not our business.
Do you consider a Citation XL an ultralight or a mid?
It's a good question. We always go back to what do you classify? If you tell me that you think it's a mid, we'll go with a mid. The mid and ultra super light price is like 0.5% difference in cost. So if you want to go and classify that as a mid, we'll go as a mid, and you're not going to get anything. I personally think it's a mid, but I know NetJets classifies it as a light jet actually. So it's really whatever you think it is.
Yeah, I think it's a mid, but if you talk to anyone in NetJets, it's a light to them.
Yep.
I'm curious to know what's the worst recovery that you've seen, either from time-wise or maybe even financially, if you can share that.
Yeah, January 2nd was a bloodbath. We had a ton of mechanicals going south to north, island stuff. One of those was a Mexico to the States. We had a customs issue. So the plane was an AOG on its reposition down to Mexico. It was actually its second mechanical. This one had 3 mechanicals, but this was going down on time departure. Then we saw it turn around and go back to the States, which is never a good sign. So we did have to go next day departure on that one, which that was because of customs. The client just didn't want to make a stop anywhere. He wanted to go direct to his final destination. In that situation, we paid for the hotels that he was in, that he didn't have to move. We just paid the extra hotel nights and then the delta in cost. So I think that one was, don't quote me on this, I think it's 60 grand. We ended up losing close to around 60 grand for that one. That was a double whammy. We had a bunch of those in the islands. Like everything was 75 to 100% losses on those. But
Josh,
yeah.
How often do you see double AOGs? I think we've come across it. Dan, we've probably had one over the last year.
Yeah, not too often. So and those are
Yeah.
the worst.
Yeah,
I
it's terrible.
normally see them when that's my customer flight. Like those are, I've got the worst juju out there, so that's normally on me. But no, we don't see that very often. It doesn't. We see a lot where we have a round trip and the plane breaks on the first leg, and then we have a second one and breaks on the second leg. So we had to do a double AOG there, but not a ton of just bad luck. And really just bad luck, I think.
Yeah. And have you had some great same day recoveries where you just
Yeah.
kind of charter gods that you're able to recover so quickly?
Yeah, we have about a 97.23%, something like that. I have to look at the direct stats, but of same day departures when an AOG happens. So not moving the client like we just discussed. We're also high 90s in upgrades. So most when an AOG occurs, actually the customer actually likes it because equal or better means most of the time we're going upgrade. And then we're also showing almost one out of two of those are going double upgrades. So, you're going light jet, now you're going to heavy jet or super mid. So we've had a lot of those. But yeah, in terms of on time, it'll shock you how many times we get the AOG notice that it's broke, not when they're stepping on board. Obviously, those suck. And you have an issue. We have an issue because we're trying to find it, but you're dealing with the client. We're not dealing with the client, so your client's mad about it. So we're cognizant of that. We put all our effort to get you out of there on time, but we're pretty good unless it's a big holiday or a late night departure or a customs issue that we're going to get you out of there that day. Maybe a delay, but out of there.
How are you recruiting? How do you find people is everybody just an industry vet that works for you, or are they the exact opposite and you can use all of your years of experience and knowing some of the best approaches to solve issues if and when they do come up?
We're hiring, and as we mentioned earlier, we're bringing in more type of people that were sourcers before. So whether that be like a big brokerage house or a jet card company, having the relationships with operators. We're also building out a new technology, not our technology, but Stack. We went with Stack, and I think Dan, you and I spoke about this one, but we went with Stack to streamline that process a little bit. They have more integrations with Avenue, integrations with, it's not Fly Easy, they don't have yet, but operator directs. You can load up your emails with operators that you want to have first shot at those trips. So when we we're building out our operator database right now where those operators get first look because they want the trips and they know that we're live and real. So those guys will immediately get pinged when it happens. So Stack will be a big key to our success in streamlining that process and just keeping everything centrally organized with also using all the integration tools of Fly Easy, Airmail, all the normal broker tools. But it still comes back to who you know, right? Like as much technology as there is, sometimes the only way you can get something is if you make a phone call.
For operators to work with you guys the most efficiently, I presume this is the way, but the guys that are getting to you quickly, you send out a request, those first couple of quotes, hey, here's the airplane, here's the time they can do. Are those the airplanes that you're usually finding your clients are selecting? The operators are getting pricing and information to you quickly?
Yeah, we have a pseudo issue in our business that when we have an AOG, you're always, because you're not paying for it, the first option that comes in is you're on a CJ3, a G5 comes in, you're like, I want that one.
Yeah.
If it depends on the scenario, like if it's a time sensitive thing, it's 9 a.m. You just found out it when AOG, the 11 a.m. departure. If that G5 can do it at 11 a.m., we'll probably move quickly with that G5 before we even gather more details because we know time is of the essence. But if that G5 can't do it till 10 p.m., we're working to find an equal or better option that can go on time for you. So we do have a little snag there, but we work with good brokers right now. We've been selective in who we've taken as customers because we want you guys to benefit. We want us to benefit. We want this win-win and not one way. So even though you haven't had a mechanical yet, you will if you keep buying it. And you're going to be the guy that wants the G5 on the CJ3 trip. But we'll get to that bridge when it happens.
If brokers or operators want to work with you to back up, or it's not really backup, it's a service, right? It's technically what it is, to utilize your service when they're operating flights that they want some backup service. What's the best way to get in contact with you? How would you suggest that they start doing business with you?
Yeah, best would be charter@charterflightsupport.com is an email, or myself, Josh@charterflightsupport.com. Details are on our website too. You can do a little ping there. We'll be automating that process more and more as we scale, where people can go online, buy it, be in a portal, yada, yada, yada. But right now, the good old fashioned of getting in contact with each other and seeing how, having these stories, seeing how they work. Some operators have DNU lists, like they just, when we go onboard them, we like to put that into their details so that when an AOG does occur, we're not calling somebody that they're not going to be able to use anyway. We're getting some good traction with some really good operators, and those guys are helping us with explain our product in a way. So we're getting more and more attention because they say, okay, I saw Solaris has this CFS deal on the third page of their contract. What is this? See, Silver Air has it. See, FX Air. All these companies that are our traction is getting out there because of they're just doing massive scale and they're giving it to their clients to choose. That's one thing that's interesting with our product is we're not telling you how to sell our product. We're telling you can use it in multiple ways. And you guys might be using it different than some other companies, but some are giving it to their client and they're saying, do you want it or do you not want it? And if they say they don't want it, that helps that broker come back to them and explain when the mechanic will happen. Yep. Other brokers are not ever telling any story about CFS to the client. They're just putting it in their pricing. When I first built it, that's what I thought everybody would do. But we're probably 50-50. 50% are doing it in their pricing. Others are doing in this kind of opt-in, opt-out route. But getting to know the customer when you say they want to get in front of, we like to just talk through how they would deploy our product and how it would work best for them. So it's not a cookie cutter solution.
Yeah. Are you seeing more growth in customers coming you to provide that backup service? Or are you seeing more operators saying, hey, I want to offer this to all of my wholesale and retail clients?
Good question. So we definitely see more being from the broker community. The operator groups are those operators that understand retail business. They are ones that have, maybe it's a blend of 60-40, 60 wholesale, 40 retail, or vice versa. Those guys, you guys get it more than, say, an operator that is just purely doing wholesale, and they don't quite understand why they would do it because they're used to just calling you guys and saying, sorry.
Yeah.
That's your problem.
Josh, do you see any expansion into other kind of backup type products? Obviously, insurance solutions, if we can claim it under that umbrella, are interesting in this space. And a lot of people don't necessarily want to touch all of the hard problems that I think you're graciously trying to solve. Where do you guys see this going? Or do you see this just being a very specific product?
No, we do not want to just be a one-trick pony. We want to put more products out there. I've been working on an algorithm for a cancel for any reason kind of policy, which when we go into these meetings, a lot of people ask about that, which would be cool, where the client books it, he's going to Aspen, and there's no snow in Aspen the day he's going for departure. And he's like, I just don't want to go to Aspen because it doesn't work. So he could cancel it, and he would have some sort of cancellation fee, or we would just always get these. But some sort of cancellation fee that is not equal to 100% that he would normally be. So we're working on details of that one. That one takes a little bit more time. It's going to be expensive. When I talk to customers, brokers, operators, they all go, we don't really care. I think people would buy it as long as they can cancel for whatever. So that's one. We'll probably get into the de-icing or the
cost.
Yeah. Like if somebody damages the airplane, stuff like that. But I think AOG will always be the biggest of all our product offerings just because it's the one that happens the most. And it's very easy to track. And as we scale, we hope that our prices come down because we hope that operators understand. And again, not all operators are doing malicious things, but hopefully that they understand that they can lower their rate because they will be getting the request for a Techlog. The other thing that we really want to do, this is not really a product in terms of a support product. It would be a kind of a rating scale, because we're getting a lot of data, and we would like the FBOs have rating scales, right? There's always somebody that posts about the number one FBO, and I don't forget who does that, but we would like
Survey that comes out, vote for us.
we would like to have all those details from our peers that are in the business booking from all the operators. So they are there telling, did they provide a tech log? What was their booking percentage rate, their booking ratio, or a AOG percentage? All these cool things that could happen, and where, us as brokers, operators, we'd like to see that. We've had a lot. There was one operator, again, not going to name a name, was one of the leading AOG people. Really nice airplanes, had a nice fleet, big fleet. And I will say that they called and asked, they're like, where do we stand? I'm like, top three, your top three AOG person. And they love that information. So they went back and they've corrected it. And our data shows since that time of conversation, they've turned an entire new leaf. They've made internal changes. They got rid of some people and added some new people, and it's changed their AOG percentage. We're not here to slam operators. I've been an operator forever. Operators have way more stress than brokers. No offense, brokers. They just have more cost. They have way more liability. We're not here to slam them. We want the cream to rise to the crop, or the top. And we think by this will allow everybody to book better options, as opposed to everybody going to the floor and finding crappy options and competing against those.
You can see when you fly commercially, there's reports comes out every year who are the best performers, who's got the best on-time ratio. It always surprises me when Spirit performs well.
Yeah, they might be able to pay to, might be somebody that can pay for a percentage, but no, we want to Google on-time percentage, just like when you go to Google Flights and there's an on-time percentage for airlines. We would love to put an integration tool that has AOG percentage on it, so that if you're with this operator and it's 30 grand and this one's 32 grand, it might make sense for you to go with the 32, and you can tell your retail client the same story because you have the data that goes behind it to show.
Yeah, maybe you get that into Avinode one of these days.
Would love to, Avinode.
Awesome. I think that's everything that we really wanted to cover. We're not going to get to an hour, which I think is an improvement by about a few minutes of our last one. So hopefully we'll be able to.
Who's talking all the time?
Ann Holmes. Let's see if we can shut our good friend Ann Holmes. We love you. Actually, she made a point about parts where you were talking about how it's tougher to get parts. Her theory is that when you're on a parts program, sometimes you're getting parts a little bit quicker than when you're off a parts program. What do you think about that?
She would probably, I've been out of the management side for a couple of years now, but I can tell you that in theory, that probably makes more sense. But I can also say that I have a history of a couple of airplanes that are on parts programs. This would be engine programs that have been grounded for 8 months because they couldn't get a hot section. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's the next thing you need to track. Hey, is this on a parts program? What is it? How are the parts programs performing?
Yeah, I know we're in discussion with a few large ones as right now to be a part of their parts programs as a secondary service. So that would be critical. Yeah. I don't know what the parts, man. It's been hell. There's nobody that's enjoying that game.